Assalamu alaikum. So, for continuation of this session, we come to the list of complications of soft tissue injury, and we discuss mainly the soft tissue injury. There will be bleeding, so we have to control the bleeding. The bleeding either might be internal bleeding or external bleeding. The external bleeding thing, it is easily to diagnose, it is easily to see it, and easily to deal with it. But the internal bleeding, sometimes it's difficult to deal with internal bleeding because it is not obvious. And in this case, we are dealing with, we have to understand that bleeding might be there from the type of injury that the person is having and from the signs and symptoms that the person is having. For external bleeding, either the first thing that we have to do is to have a direct pressure over it. Direct pressure over it by our hand, by any type of cloth that we have, or gauze if we have. So we are, because we are as a first aider, we are working with the available thing. If gauze is not there, we have to use a cloth, clean cloth, and do a direct pressure over it until the bleeding is stopped. If we wrap it, we put a piece of gauze and put a compression and we wrap it. If bleeding is still oozing from the dressing that we put, don't remove the dressing that you put. Just put another gauze or piece of cloth over it and do more compression. If the bleeding is still coming out, in this case, we have to deal with what we call, we have to elevate the body part, especially if it is in the limb, either the upper limb or the lower limb. By that, by elevation above the level of the heart, this will decrease the blood flow to the air. The other thing, it is the compression over the pressure point. Compression over pressure point, it depends upon the site. So in the hand, the artery here, the axillary artery, it's coming from this side, and then it will come to two branches, radial and ulnar. So if you press here under the armpit, firm here, so this will help in to stop the bleeding. By that, we are decreasing the blood supply to the area. Sometimes they are using what we call it the tourniquet, but it is not advisable for anyone to use the tourniquet. Tourniquet, it is an object that will lead to hard compression over the side, so it will cut the blood completely from that side. But in this case, if you are not dealing with it in a proper way, in this case it will lead to gangrene, and the person, he will lose that limb, especially if it is taking time to transfer the client to the hospital, or if the emergency people are coming, if they are far away and no way to come out, within a short period of time. So, but the internal bleeding, we have to know the signs and symptoms that it might indicate that internal bleeding might be there. So, if internal bleeding is there, usually the patient might be drowsy, the patient also sweating might be there. If we check his pulse, the pulse, it will be very weak and very fast. Breathing also, it will start to be very fast in order to compensate the oxygen supply to the tissues, the demand for oxygen. So, and also the face of that client, it will be pale or ashy in color. So those are signs of internal bleeding that might be there, and also depend upon the type of injury. Usually the patient will be in a position that it will help in the controlling of the bleeding, in the internal bleeding. So in this case, you can keep him in that position until we transfer him, until he reach the hospital, or until the emergency people came and helped him. Anyway, in those cases, the most important thing that we have in dealing with them, to check the scene first. If the scene is safe, then you can ask for a permission to help. Then the help, it will be according to the, if it is external bleeding, as we said, we have to apply direct pressure. Don't remove that piece of gauze or cloth from the side. You have to wrap it with a bandage. If bleeding is still there, you have to wrap it again. You have to put another bandage and a piece of gauze until the bleeding is stopped. If that stopped, you have to elevate, and you have to use the compression point, or the point of pressure. In the legs, it is the groin region, it is the popliteal region also, that you have to press over it. The other thing which also affects the soft tissue, the damage on the layer of the skin, which is the burn. Burn, it is damage of the layer of the skin, or fat, or muscle, or even the bone, caused by heat, or it might be caused by chemical or electricity. So the burn, it can be due to either heat, it can be dry heat or moist heat, or it can be due to chemical substances, or it might be due to electrical burn. Dealing with those type of burn, it is different according to the type of burn. So what to look for? You have to look for the signal of burn, depend upon whether the burn is superficial or partial thickness or full thickness. If it is superficial burn, usually only you will see that redness is there. If it is second degree burn, in this case you will see blisters. Blisters, it is filled with water. Those swelling will be coming out and water will be inside. This, we call them blisters. If it is third degree burn, sometimes it might reach the under the skin, and even sometimes the muscles. So it might be also very dark, and it might be black in color sometimes. So this is what we call it, the full thickness of the skin. When we have to call for emergency, we have to call for emergency in case of burn, in case if the client is having a trouble with the breathing, regardless to the size of the burn. Because sometimes the trouble of breathing, it is not the burn, it might be internal from inhaling of hot air. It might be suffocation from the smoke which is there from the burn. So in this case, if difficulty in breathing is there, definitely the patient is in need to transfer him to the hospital. If we are able to transfer him, and if it is faster than calling the emergency people to come, because it depends upon how many minutes they need to come to the site. The burn, if the burn covering more than one body part or a large surface of the body. Especially there are some part of the body that, in this case, the patient can be transferred, he has to be transferred to the hospital regardless, even the size is small. If the burn at the neck, in this case, it might interfere with the breathing. If it is in the face, also, it might affect the senses, it might affect the eyes, it might affect, so because of that, he needs to be transferred to the hospital, even if it is a small area or the percentage of the burn is small. If it is in a sensitive area in the joint, at the joint side, because it might lead to contraction. So in this case, it needs a special care. But if it is a small, just 1% in the hand, or it might need just a first aid, and even sometimes it might you might deal with it at home. So if there is suspected burn on the airway, if burn on the head or neck, or hands, feet, or genitalia, if there is a full thickness burn on a victim younger than 5 years or older than 60 years, we have to call. Burn caused by chemical explosion or electricity, because for electricity, the burn, it will be deep. We might not notice the size of the, because in electrical burn, there will be a site of entrance of the current at the site of exit. But in between, it is inside the body. We don't know the extensivity of the burn which is inside the body. Yani, if we have a contact with electricity, the electricity, it will come from that part that touch the electrical source, and it will come out to the earth from any part of the body which is in touch of the earth, or to water, or some any part that can conduct electricity. So in between, burn, it might be inside the body. Any way, in order to avoid those things, prevention always, regardless if it is there in your book or not, but we are concerned mostly in the prevention of those things. The prevention of burn, the prevention of poisoning, the prevention of the electric shock. The prevention of electric shock, you have to check at home if any site or any switch or any plugs that has some cracks, or that if any wire that it is not insulated well. The electric applicants that you are using, you have to check it regularly. Check the wire of that for any cracks or any that cover, that insulator, if it is due to the exposure to sun, or due to exposure to some chemical substances, sometimes it might be breaking down. And it might lead to electrical shock, it might lead to also burn or fire at home. Previously, most of the electrical fire that happened due to electricity, it was from that, the extension wire, which is round one, if you remember it. Now they are not using it no more. وصلت الكهرباء الدائرية محولة. You know why most of the problem happened because of it. ليش تشوط؟ So why it might lead to electrical problems? The problem might not be from it. It might be from us, the user of it. Those around one, if we are using it, sometimes when we are going to purchase one like this, we usually are taking the longer one. So even if we want 1 meter, you will go for the 5 meter or 10 meter. The problem when you are using it, you have to take it out fully in order to make it work well. Do you notice the transformer how they are formed from inside? المحولات كيف عمركم فتحتوا محول من الداخل؟ ما عمركم شفتوا محول من الداخل؟ ويرات كيف؟ سيدك ذاك. they are going around that magnetic part. So, and this extension wire, when it is inside, it is similar to the transformer. So it will get heated due to the magnetic field around it. It will lead to formation of electromagnetic field. That electromagnetic field, it will lead to heating of that part. And usually it is insulated by plastic. So the plastic will melt. Then it will lead to contact and it might lead to fire. It will lead to a spark, and after that it might lead to fire. Because of that, now they are not using it so much. The best thing, by the way, if you are in need for extension wire, to do it by yourself, to prepare it by yourself. Go and purchase a plug and purchase that wire and purchase that. So it's all of them, and then connect them together properly, and use the proper one, a thick one, not the a thin wire, like 2.5 millimeter. They know that it has, because it has to be the tolerance of the load of the electricity that can be transferred. It has to be tolerated by that wire. This is more important than the session, by the way, because it is at home and we are in need to prevent those problems. The other thing that happened from us and it lead to electrical shock and or to fire, which is the using of multi equipment on the same plug or in the same extension wire. For each extension wire and the plug, there is a maximum load. How many ampere? You will find on it, it will be written the number of amperes that it can be tolerated. There are many the electrical applicants, they are different in their consumption of electricity. The hair dryer is consuming too much electricity. When electricity is going high in that, if the wire that we are using and the extension wire that we use is a thin one and it cannot tolerate, it will also be heated, and also it will lead to spark formation. The other thing, if the plugs also is loose and not fixed well, if you feel that it is not fixed well, also this will lead to that it's not touching that internal part probably. And if you feel it, you will find that it is hot, it become hot. This also a sign that it might lead either to melting of the insulating part over the wire and causing fire or electric shock. And many houses, they are getting fire due to some minor, very minor thing that it might cost only half of 500 pisa or 1 real for maintenance. But the result, it might be a disaster. So always try to find out those minor things. Also, when dealing with those electrical shock and electrical in case of if any source of fire or electric fire which is coming from electricity or other source, the first thing that you have to do is to switch off the main board. Switch off the electricity. By that, you will be safe. Don't interfere, don't go to and touch that person while he is in contact with electricity. Because we are a good transmitter for the electricity. So the electricity, it will go through our body also. You will be catched. Yeah, the first thing, you have to put the electricity off. Electricity also, if a fire is from electricity, don't use water for extinguishing of that fire. Because if you are using water, then in this case you will be catched by the electricity. And the person also, because it happened once it is from very sad stories, that one lady, she was using the washing machine, and she was using an extension wire. That extension wire, it might be, I think, from those thin one. Then she saw the sparks, and there was some mat around, so fire is coming. What she was trying to do, sometimes we got confused, our mind will go out of order when we see something like this. So she was using her hand in order to, because it was a minor still at the beginning, she was using her hand to extinguish that fire. So she was catched by the electricity. Sometimes also there is problem with the main switch. The main switch usually, if it is working well, it has to go down by itself, automatically. But it doesn't go down. So there might be some problem with the main switch. Then one of her girls saw her, and in this case the fire started also to catch the mirror. So she was going to extinguish the fire by using water. She brings a jug of water and she throw it over her mother. What's happened? She died. She is completely burned because you are using water over the electricity. So we have to be aware of that. The main thing, whenever fire is there, the first thing that you have to do is to put the switch off, regardless to the cause, if it is electrical or non-electrical. Because even if it is not electrical, if we are using for extinguishing of the fire, if you are using water or any solution, definitely it will go to the electricity and the problem will be aggravated. And the extinguisher also, there are different type of extinguisher that we are dealing with. So you have to use the proper extinguishing machine. Sometimes the burn, it happened in the kitchen while you are frying some potato or something in the pan, and you are using oil. Sometimes what will happen, when you put something inside the pan, some of the oil, it might come out, so it will catch the fire from gas, and the fire, it might go inside the pan itself. If you use your mind and you can extinguish it smoothly without causing any problems. Just take a cover and just cover it. Before that, just close the gas cylinder. When you are closing the gas cylinder, so the source of the fire, it will be less, and even the oil, if in worst thing, even if you lift that pan to and the oil to be burned out, it will not make anything. Just you need to paint later the kitchen and to clean the kitchen. It will not spread to other side. But the worst thing, if we are acting in a non-proper way, if we are using water to distinguish that fire, do you know what will happen? Fire will spread. Because pouring water over a boiling oil, it will be spread out with the fire. So instead of just the local fire, which is inside that pan, it will be all over the kitchen. And if there are some, it is according to what's there, it will catch the fire, and the fire, it might go to the whole house. So just cover it. Close the gas cylinder and cover it with any metal cover. Cover it from the side, not rather from up, because when you are covering from up, you are increasing the oxygen to water. Covering from the side, you will cut the oxygen source, so the fire, it will subside by it. It is a very simple thing. Chemical burn, it might be, there are two kinds of chemicals. The chemical that might lead to, it is either acid or base, strong acid, strong base. Strong acids, it might be poured by mistake on our body. So in this case, what you have to do, usually it is liquid, so you have to clean it with under running water. By that, it will be helpful. Any chemical, if it came to our body, if it is a powder, in this case we have to brush it. Don't put water, because water, it will lead to absorption of it, especially if it is poisonous material, chemical poison. This we will come it in the unit of poisoning. But for acid or strong base, just put water, put it under water, and then you can transfer him to the hospital. There is a problem also sometimes with those poisonous materials. Sometimes we are using it, or we are using some container which is used for food in order to store those, like kerosene, like diesel, like sometimes we are using the container which is used for water, drinking water. We should not use it for any toxic substance. Why? Because sometimes we might have it for a certain purpose, those toxic material, and sometimes we are having pesticidal or toxic material to use it for our plants and to spraying our gardens. If it is there in something which is used for food, sometimes the small children, they will say, why it is here? Usually this can, it is there in the fridge. So they will put it in the fridge. Or also by others. The father might put it there, or the mother might put it in that can, but the father will come and why it is there, put it in the fridge. Then after some time, he will come to drink some water. Instead of that, he will drink either the kerosene and it's happened. When you are thirsty, you will not feel the taste and the smell unless you swallow. After you swallow some of it, then you will feel. And it's happened. Many cases happened that poisoning due to those substances. In this case, what we can do, how we can help? Can we give them something? If they are swallowing some or taking some acid or poisonous material, what we can do for them?
Medicine for vomiting.
Don't eat it.
Vomiting, induced vomiting.
Don't eat anything. Don't eat anything.
Don't eat anything. Okay, yes, don't eat anything. What other thing? Transfer to hospital. Can we help with something? Can we give them something? It depends upon if.
Like chocolate. Step like chocolate.
Chocolate?
Chocolate. Last.
You use the steps of shock. If they are having shocks, if they are becoming unconscious, but mostly they will still conscious. But the problem, the pain and the burn, it will be inside in their stomach. So in this case, if it is acid or base, in both cases we can give milk. Don't induce vomiting, because induction of vomiting, that substance that they took, when it goes down, it leads to burn, and when it is coming out, also it will lead burn to the esophagus and the throat. So don't induce vomiting. We can give milk. Milk is a nutrient, but don't induce vomiting. Then transfer him to the hospital. What we can do until help arrive, this is in case of burn, thermal burn, we have to cool the burn by putting that part under a running water. But running water should be at a room less than the body temperature, normal body temperature. Yani here we cannot use the running water during summer because water, it will be sometimes the temperature of the water from the tap, it might be more than 40, so it will lead to burn itself. So cool, a large amount of cool running water. For chemical burn, also if it is liquid, we put under water. If it is powder, or in this case we have to brush it first, brush it out, then we can use it. Electrical burn, transfer him to the hospital because that's mainly it has inlet and outlet, and the burn from outside, it is not apparent. So don't be the second victim, as we said, and you have to be sure that the person is so we talk in this session about the sprain, which is the sprain of ligament, strain of the muscle and or tendon, tear of sprain and strain. So treatment of it is with RICE, which is rest, immobilization, and what other, elevation and comfort. Never put ice directly on the skin. Amputation and aviation, we have to wrap the body part in a cloth and put in large bag and put ice inside. Stabilize the embedded object. Only remove object if they are threatening the breathing. About the tooth, put it in milk and transfer him to the dentist. If nasal bleeding, don't lean back or lean forward. Keep straight and just press over the nose continuously. Put occlusive dressing over the neck wound and sucking chest wound. For sucking chest wound, leave one side untaped. Evisceration, aluminum foil over the dry dressing, also over the moist dressing. So, patient, when the intestine or part of the intestine is coming up, we have to keep it moist, and we have to cover the patient with aluminum foil. Bleeding control, we also mentioned about bleeding control. We have to check the signs of injury and cover the wound as sterile dressing, apply direct pressure, as we said, cover the dressing with a bandage, and also apply more pressure and call for quadrenine. Use elevation, elevate the part if it is possible, and if the blood is not stopped, you can press over the pressure point on our body. Thank you.